Hello and welcome to the Dancing Geek podcast. Having since spoken in my last episode about doing an opening spiel to get going when I was talking to Nathan or Sock Competition from his podcast, I now have become incredibly self-conscious about my own opening spiel. So there we go, Nathan, it hasn't worked at all. I've just made myself incredibly self-conscious. Anyway, hello and welcome. My name is James. I go online by DancingGeek, hence the name of the podcast, and you can find all my online info underneath the video. And to kick off the knitting stuff, I do have to say there's not very much this episode. I have been massively preoccupied with Dungeons and Dragons. My geeky side has been getting its quota well and truly filled. And I'm still a little bit obsessed with it, to be honest. We've just started a campaign as a bunch of us. We've all made characters, and I'm making backstory for him, so I know exactly how I want to play him in different situations. And I'm thinking it way too hard. But I just really enjoy it. So, it is what it is. So, in terms of whips and foes, I have one foe and one whip to show. Not masses, and I've not made massive progress on each of them. My foe was very near to the end, so here we go. Here are my socks that I finished, and yeah, if you can see the little dangly progress marker there, that's where I was last time I showed you them. So all I did was about 1 inch of the foot and a toe. Really not much at all to finish them. I was keeping these as a sort of travel project in terms of I could just grab them and take them with me somewhere. But then I realised actually I was never taking them anywhere because I needed to sort of know how long I was going to make the foot, and I was towards the end, so I needed to measure it carefully, and then I needed to do the toe, and I needed to check the pattern for the toe because I did a kind of funky spiral toe from the Sock Architecture book by Laura Neal. And yeah, that kind of made me realise I just need to finish them at home and get them done, and at least it's a project off of the whips list. So, a new pair of socks, which is always a welcome addition. And then my whip is my main ongoing project at the moment, which is my Corridon sweater, or Corridon jumper as I would call it. Although for some reason I think I've either written Corridon sweater or said Corridon sweater too many times, so now I don't say Corridon jumper, I say Corridon sweater, so yeah. And here it is. So the back is done and the front is done. My progress marker is on... so it's hiding at the back of it there, so it's down here. So I just had to do, again, a sort of 1 inch or so of the basic pattern with just some decreases down the side with the sleeves, and then I did the neckline, which meant it went really fast. What it did also mean, however, was that I was knitting 2 sections at the same time, and each section I was knitting alternate skeins on. So I had 4 skeins on the go. So I've got 2 ends up here and 2 ends up here, and down here where I joined the other yarn. So it was a little bit crazy trying to knit these tiny triangles with 4 skeins of yarn, but I was kind of determined I was going to keep alternating skeins, and so that's what happened. Rather than just knitting one with one skein and one with the other, I was like, no, I'm going to do them, and I did them both at the same time, because the pattern said to do them at the same time, and I didn't feel like trying to work out whether or not it would matter if I didn't. I honestly don't think it would have mattered, but there we go. So yes, this is the neckline, which will sit sort of down here, and then I've got an actual neck that will get knit on, so it's all looking very good. Kind of looks like it's going to fit, which is good. And I have the main body completed, so I could actually kind of hook them together at the top and the sides or something and try it on, but no, I don't think I need to. Plus, I have not washed and blocked this, and it's intended that it will grow when I wash and block it. Because of the whole issue I had before, I ended up having to re-knit the entire back because I didn't think of washing my swatch, and so my gauge was massively off when I washed it. I didn't just stop finishing that. I did actually, when I did finish that, I immediately cast on for the sleeve because I thought, oh, this is exciting. I'm going to be making a sleeve that'll go really fast. And it kind of has because I've not spent much time on it at all. So very quick to get the ribbing done, and I'm on to the normal pattern. And the only issue with this is that the pattern is in sort of 5s or 10s really, so it's a lot of 5 and then another lot of 5 which is slightly off centre, and then it repeats back from exactly the beginning. But the increases are not in 5s. I'm just thinking, oh, I shouldn't give too much of the pattern away, so I'll just say that the increases are not in 5s. So of course it means I am again having to kind of keep track of alternating skeins, staying in pattern, and now increasing as opposed to decreasing. And at least with the decreasing it was fairly regular in terms of fairly it was very regular decreasing. It was very easy to know when I was meant to be decreasing. With this it's every so many rows, and it's non-trivial, so it's going to be like, oh right, I've got to count rows as well, and it'll never be the same row of the pattern because it's so yeah. So I've got that fun to look forward to. So I haven't really knit on that. I had a couple of instances recently where I could have sort of knit whilst chatting with people and stuff, but I just thought I don't have a nice simple project. They're all fairly complex. And actually, everything I've got on the go at the moment needs to go on hold. The jumper might get some love, but I have a little list of projects that I've kind of promised people or what have you, and the deadlines for those, where I have them, are coming fairly quickly, and where I don't have them, I'm thinking, I probably should have done this already. So everything, all of my whips, including the ones I haven't brought to show you today, like my heliocentric hat, which has got like 2 rows on it, and you'll see it in a bit anyway, and those kind of things, there's nothing, it's all getting paused. Everything. So I've got like 5 projects I think, and they're all getting paused, and my spinning I haven't touched. I still haven't sorted out taking the current one off the spindle so I can use a different fibre on that spindle and save that one for later or what have you. I don't know. That requires too much like emotional investment to work out how I feel about it, which is just more than I want to have to deal with for the moment. So yeah, everything's very complicated in my life, nothing simple. Be nice if it was, and I'm working on it, but for the moment at least, I like to make things complicated. Hey ho. Yeah, so I'm going to have, hopefully, next podcast, a whole bunch of new whips, and possibly even faux, to show you. And I have not done really any knitting this fortnight. You've seen it. It was a toe and an inch or something, and a inch or something, and a neckline. It was maybe 2 days that I picked the needles up even at all, and that's partly, you know, things come and go, and I think it's partly, well, it's a lot to do with the fact that I got really into D&D and got really excited about doing that with my friends, and yeah. But what I did do was, on the sleeve, I'd stopped halfway through a row, so I just finished the row, and as just before recording, just so it was easier to hold up and show you it. And then as I was finishing it, I went, oh, I've missed this. So yes, I can tell that I'm going to be picking up the needles again fairly soon. So let's get you some lovely things to show you. Now, I haven't been knitting much, but I have some awesome stash enhancement to show you. So my stash love comes in 3 sections today, and the first one is going to be my birthday purchase. So this is what I bought on my birthday as a treat, as well as the stuff I bought before my birthday that arrived just before and I decided was also a birthday treat. Because, you know, everything's an excuse, right? And technically it's still my birthday month right now, so I'm okay. I can still relish my birthdayness. So, I think I will start, well, you'll see the trend fairly quickly, but I think I shall start with the rather now infamous blue tick yarn. So, this is in honour of / what's the word I'm looking for? Enabled by the Bakery Bears podcast with Kay and Dan. Dan's been knitting some socks up in the blue tit yarn, and I have to admit he's been showing it and talking about it, and I did fall in love with it, and I really liked the West Yorkshire Spinners bird range in their signature 4-ply. And it's really nice yarn. I made some owl socks a little while back, if you saw that, and they're really nice to wear, and it's 75 wool, 25 nylon, but 35% is BFL, so there's 40% generic wool, 35% BFL, so it's priced nicely for sort of fun, fancy yarn, but it's got a nice BFL content as well, so it's kind of, I think it's fairly well balanced. It's not sort of super cheap, but it's not overly expensive either. And yeah, now I have my own blue tit yarn, which I'm very happy about. And because it was my birthday, and because I love birds, and because it was my birthday, and I'd been eyeing them up anyway, I also got myself some, this one is pheasant, I believe, because they're not written on them, so this is from memory, pheasant, and some mallard, and some bullfinch, and some wood pigeon. So if I'll see if I can hold all 5 of these up together without them kind of flying out of my hands. There we go. So there's the range. Minus owl, because obviously that one's already knitted up and everything. And they're absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited to have these. I have way too much sock yarn already. You know, I know this to be a fact. I just do. I can't even fit the stuff I had before the last lot of sock yarn that I bought into its little cubby hole without kind of cramming it in. I've now got another bag, which is the stash enhancement I showed you guys last episode. That's just in a poly bag next to where I store my yarn, because I haven't taken the time to try and sort it all out. And then I've gone and bought more, and I've got more stash to show you guys still. So everything's going to be sock yarn from now on in, but that's fine with me because I want to knit more socks. I want to knit some sock head hats, and I want to knit a sock weight jumper. So the plan is to use up lots and lots of sock weight yarn, lots of fingering yarn. It does, however, mean slightly slower knitted projects. So, although the smaller ones obviously will still go fairly quick. But like my jumper, when I sit and do it, I can churn out like a whole back in a week or something, and you know, without sort of diligently doing it. I'd probably do a whole jumper in a week if I tried, but that's kind of crazy talk, right? I mean, who wants to do that? Although, speaking of, I have been challenged to complete the Even Star shawl by, I think it's the end of September, which means I've got about 2 months. And I haven't even picked out and bought the yarn yet. And apparently, Mr. Josh Ricks from Sort of a Knitter podcast, apparently he managed to knit one in 8 days, and my competitive side has really been, I'm like, I know that I would have to dedicate an entire week solid to knitting to try and get something like an Even Star shawl done in a week, and I think even then it would be a massive struggle because that guy can knit. I would have to be seriously committed. And my competitive side is like, come on, yeah, do it! And the part of me that's like trying to be a little bit more healthy and balanced and looking after myself is going, you know, you don't need to do it in 7 days just to try and beat Josh. No one's going to really, you know, think that much better of you if you do or worse of you if you don't. And maybe it might just be a little bit unhealthy to be that obsessed with it. So we'll see. But that's my challenge anyways, at least by the end of September. So basically, however much I procrastinate buying the yarn and getting started on it, and thank you again to Ellen for buying me the pattern for my birthday. Depends on how much time I give myself to actually get it done, so we'll see. Oh, and I've got so many other things that have to get knitted first, so I don't have a full 2 months. I might get about 6 weeks, or so. I might get 6 weeks if I manage to get everything done that I need to in the next couple of weeks. I think there's 2 or 3 things. And I really haven't been knitting, and I'm still obsessed with D&D. Oh, you can see where this is going, right? It's not going to work. Oh well, this is, in fact, I sound a lot like I did at Christmas. Where I was like, oh, I want to get this done and this done and this done and this done, and I've got 4 weeks, it'll be fine. It's so not going to happen. So we'll see. Maybe I will end up with 2 weeks to do the Even Star Shawl, and I will just decide either I fail the challenge, or I go insane and like pull a Josh Ricks and do it. We'll see what happens. But on the happy side is my shiny, shiny sock yarn, which I'm very happy about. So thank you, Dan, for enabling that particular purchase on my birthday. And you will hear more on a related topic later on. So the other purchase that I made myself, I showed you guys last episode, and I didn't think to actually bring it to compare side by side. No, I don't need to do that. It's not worth it. But I bought some yarn, and it didn't look how I thought it was going to come out. The colours were not as saturated as I thought they were in the photo, and I didn't think they were as balanced as I thought they were in the photo. So I messaged the vendor and just sort of said, oh, I was kind of disappointed, just so you know, the picture was a bit misleading, even though, these things can't be, always, everyone always has to put disclaimers on saying, no, your picture might not be a perfect match and stuff. And it is tricky when you buy something like yarn on Etsy. You really do have to make an effort to try and calibrate yourself a little bit with the colours that you're seeing. But I just suddenly had this whole thought around, oh, how would you do that? Oh, is there a website for calibrating your monitor? And it's like, no, stop, James, I don't need to go down that road yet. But Nicole was wonderful and messaged me back and went, oh my gosh, no, I do not want you to be disappointed at all. I will dye you a new one to send over. And yeah, you can just have a replacement one, and I will make it super saturated just for you. And I was like, oh my god, that's amazing! So thank you very much, Nicole C. Mendez, for my new super rainbow. I am so excited by this. So, there's no pastel shades on this. It's the same tones, so it's the same colours, but they're much more saturated. And it's beautiful. I mean, just look at this. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm absolutely thrilled with this, and I can't wait to turn it into some gorgeous rainbowness. And she kind of, her self-striping, which this is an example of, the colourway is called James's Special Rainbow. I love it, I love it. If you're a vendor and I buy from you, even if you've already written the label, if you write something on the label like James's Special or DancingGeeks on the top, I'm going to feel 100 times awesomer about it, because I love it when something's like been labelled with my name on it. It's awesome. Oh, there we go, they're not quite, there we go, now it's nicely laid out. But it's sort of blue on one side and orange on the other, which is just how the fibres are arranged around each other. But there we go, you can kind of see the colours there. It's like, oh my god, it's amazing. So it's beautiful, and the colours just ring, and I'm trying to decide if I can think of what these colours are. So the red is this lovely deep scarlet, and the orange it's not a sort of neon-y citrus orange, it's a gentler peach orange, but it's lovely and saturated. The yellow is quite a neon yellow. The green is this lovely kind of light, almost aqua type green. The blue is just this gorgeous saturated baby sky blue, and then the purple is It's not quite a Cadbury's purple, it's lighter than that. I'd say it's more a Milka purple. Yes, all of my purples are named after chocolate bars. But it works really well, so if you guys don't have Milka bars, then I apologise, but if you look up Milka UK or something, it's not a UK chocolate, but if you don't have it over there, if you've not seen it, you can find a Google image of it and check to see what I'm talking about. But they're beautiful, or alternatively I can just do that and you can see for yourselves. So thank you again, Nicole, for that. Nicole C. Mendez. Her Etsy shop is nicolecmendez.etsy.com, so it's fairly straightforward. She's based in Germany, and so it's awesome. And so it also means that her label says 75% Voller SW, which is superwash wool. I can understand that much. And polyamide, which is polyamides. So there we go. Gorgeous! And I shall sort that out afterwards. However, I have saved my super special one for last because my wonderful friend Catty over in Germany, she put together a little package. Now originally the idea was this was going to be a Buffy themed craft swap type thing. Excuse me a moment. And after a while I kind of realised that I was not it wasn't something that I was going to be any good at, basically. It wasn't something that clicked with me. And I thought, so I messaged and said, you know, is it too late to call it off? I don't think it's going to work for me. You know, sorry, very, very sorry. But I'd never kind of signed up for one before, and I thought, oh, it's my friend, it'd be lovely. And I just realised, actually, no, that's really not something I'm any good at. Maybe it's something I can learn, but I was just like, with everything else I'm trying to sort of think about and have in my head, I just didn't have space to also try and develop this side of me. So I was like, no. And she went, yeah, that's fine, but I'll still send you yours. In the lovely parcel that Catty sent me were some awesome little gifts, the first of which are these amazing little stitch markers. And hopefully, can I find, let me think about this, can I find a way to hold them up that I hope will therefore, no, that's not going to work, show up a bit better. How about like this? Yeah, that might show up a bit better. Who knows? Anyway. I'll just hold them up and I'll talk about them. So there's this gorgeous little rose, an orange bead, and a see-through bead, and then a little feather on the bottom of this one. And then this one, and this one is just on a ring, a split ring. This one has a lobster claw, and then a little see-through cut sort of shape, a black larger cut shape, and a see-through rounded shape, with a gravestone at the bottom, R.I.P. on one side with the raven, and then nevermore. Quote the raven, nevermore. So yes, there's a bit of a Edgar Allan Poe style. And I think she said these ones were named Tara, to do with the character from Buffy, which was kind of cute. And I don't necessarily understand all of her thinking behind it, but they're still beautiful, so that's okay. I will have my own interpretation of these things. And then she sent me two gorgeous, gorgeous skeins of wool. So one is this beautiful hand-dyed or handmade, I think it is, in Germany, this wool. So it's 75-25 superwash polyamide, but it's got these gorgeous, gorgeous colours in, from a very almost neon green in places, particularly sort of in here. And there's quite a limey green over the top here. Comes down and it feeds into this kind of, there's a bit of a grassy green in between hand, and then it goes into a slightly darker sort of seaweedy green, and then you come round over here and it's it's still it's still greenish, but it's got quite a blue tint to it. It's almost like a blue algae kind of a green. And then I think, yes, then it goes back round the other way. So it's absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. Again, it's 4-ply, it's sock wool effectively, so more beautiful, beautiful sock wool for me to make something out of. And I'm going to need to sit and have a think about all these different, like this is obviously a gradient one, this is a self-striping one, this is a pattern variegated one, and I kind of need to really suss out how I'm going to use each of these different yarns, because I really still don't have a strong sense in my head of, oh, this would really suit a gradient or a pattern or a self-striping, particularly things like gradients and self-stripings, because I don't have that idea in my head yet of, or if I knit this hat in self-striping, then the stripes are going to look yay big, whereas if I knit a sock in it, the stripes will look yay big, or what have you. So I'm still working that one out. But this is called Neo, and it's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Catty. And then there is another one. This one is by Three Irish Girls Yarning, which is the American yarn company I've heard a bit about. And this goes from very sort of dark navy blues through your kind of mid blues into slightly lighter blues, just as it starts to hit this gorgeous kind of pinky scarlet. It's not quite a full-blown red, it's a little bit pinky, and where they meet there's kind of this cloudy purpley colour going on in the inside there, if you can see that. But check out that amazing colour, absolutely gorgeous. So I'm super happy with this, and these she sent me a note with saying they are for the Totoro socks, which is the pattern that she bought me a while back, I think. So these will become Totoro socks. Since Catty specified that's what it's for, that's what I will use it for. I think that's fine, and it's quite nice to have a project set out already, and you've got, this is the yarn, this is the pattern, I just need to make it. That's nice and low stress. And included in the package was this lovely card from Delta, who must be the dyer behind Three Irish Girls, or maybe one of, since it says Three Irish Girls, written to Catty saying thank you very much. So obviously Catty didn't open up the package, but I can show you this gorgeous card from Three Irish Girls, which is super pretty, and shows off some of their really nice yarns quite well. So that's threeirishgirls.com if you're interested. And oh, it's just beautiful, it's just beautiful. This is 80% merino, 20% nylon. And it's just like, oh, and it's so squishy. Oh. And so yes, I'm super excited. So thank you very much, Catty, for those as well. So that's 8 new skeins of sock yarn that I have. And then, oh, actually, yeah, I nearly forgot about this. There's still more from Catty, but I'll just jump back to the West Yorkshire Spinners bird yarn. I got it from brityarn.co.uk, and it comes with a cute little bead stitch marker just on a ring kind of thing, yeah, which is beautiful to go in my little collection of them. And there's a little note on the back that says, "Hi James, many thanks for your order. I love your collection of birds. Enjoy," which I thought was kind of cool. And when I posted on Instagram, no, in fact, I think when she was putting the order together, she posted a photo of it, and she said, because she doesn't obviously say this is going to so and so. But I think she posted underneath it, "Happy Bird Day," because I'd said it was for my birthday. Oh, that was awesome. So, yeah, it's from Brityarn, brityarn.co.uk, and she's Brityarn on Twitter and Brityarn on Instagram and stuff. That's her little card there. Cool little, I'm guessing it's maybe a Moo card, because they're kind of really good for setting stuff up like this. So thank you, Isla, who is the lady behind Brityarn, for my stitch marker and for my lovely, very well and quickly delivered order. And then, last but by no means least, in fact rather special, is a copy of a new pattern by Catty. And I don't think she's even released this yet, so it's very exclusive for me at the moment, and I think she sent it to at least one other friend. But it's called the Buffy Yoga Sock Mitts, and it's fantastic. Okay, so you can see the photo on the front. It's a pair of mittens, but they're a little bit sort of unusually constructed. And so they are sort of, there's a whole story about the idea that therefore, no, let me arrange my thoughts a bit better before I try and describe all of this to you. There is another photo, which I shall try and line up. Yeah, okay, that's not too much to put on. I'll just kind of sort of half cover it. There we go. So you can see that they are like yoga socks, but also mitts. And I'm like, that's genius! Genius! How clever is that? So it's designed to be able to be worn either way. I just think that's amazing. Really cool idea. She talks about the inspiration from Buffy, and so it's part of the Buffy craft share, and sort of Buffy training and sort of doing things like yoga perhaps or what have you in her little sort of yoga socks, keeping her feet and ankles warm, and then sort of when she's done that she can wear them as mitts. I'm a little bit uncertain as to whether I would do a yoga class and then wear it as mitts, but I know that when I work out, to not be too indelicate, I perspire a generous amount. I have some friends who are dancers who will do some full-on dance work and they'll maybe glow slightly. And it's just the way they are, and it's just the way I am, and there's not a particular, it doesn't seem to be particularly related to good or bad health as far as I can see. Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily want to do that myself. But if it had been a gentle stretching yoga class and it was just to keep my feet warm for a bit, and then yeah, why not? Absolutely. So yeah, you know. But either way, you could just have them as mitts, you know, or you could kind of just have them as this versatile mitt for your feet or hands. And I just think that's such a cool idea. So thank you very much for that as well, Catty. I look forward to trying that out and seeing. I'm intrigued actually, because I haven't sort of studied the pattern yet. Let's have a look. It's designed for DK weight, and the yardage is sort of 100 gram skein, sort of roughly, so about 200 meters, that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. So if you like the look of those, then I'm sure Catty will let us know when it's published, and I'm sure that I will give it a shout out when she tells me that it's gone live, and I'll be able to tell you guys. And that is my little stash enhancement pile of yarn. However, there is one more thing that I want to show you guys as a stash enhancement that is yarn related, and I'm quite excited about. So I'm going to pause for a second, and then I will come back. So my last item in my stash enhancement is yarn related, but not yarn itself. It is this little beastie. Ta-da! It is a slow cooker. I went to the grocery store and was doing the weekly shopping, and I wandered down the electric goods aisle thinking I might get a slow cooker for the kitchen, and I did in fact get a slow cooker for the kitchen. But as I was looking down the aisle, I spotted this little beauty all boxed up. So I got a sort of 5.5 litre one for the kitchen. I think it's ginormous. It's brilliant. I could feed 4 or 6 people out of it, and I've used it a few times now, and it's been wonderful. I absolutely love it. But I got this one, which is just a little 1 litre one, or 1.5 litre one, for yarn dyeing. So it was £10. That's it. From Morrison's, if you're British and you want to go and check it out. It was Morrison's I bought it from. And the large one in the kitchen has been working absolutely fine. It's cooking away now at the moment, dinner for tonight. And I've had no problems. It's a lovely sturdy pot. The pot is I can put in the dishwasher. The lid's decent, and you can see through, so you can see what's going on in it and everything. I'm really, really chuffed with it. So I've literally just unboxed this so I can show you guys, because I haven't touched it because I don't have any yarn to dye, or rather that I want to dye. I have some that I could dye or potentially over dye. Sorry, I think I knocked the table there. But I'm planning to buy some yarn in and do get some undyed from the internet or something for cheap. So it'll be something more like £4, £5 a skein, rather than 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 pound a skein, or even £8 a skein for undyed. That was what I saw at Woolfest, and I was like, no, I can get it cheaper online, as I said before in the other episode. So I've got a little slow cooker to try and do it in as well. I found it awkward trying to do it in the jam pan. And in terms of variegation, I don't know what it would be like to do it in this, because I could put it on high, at which point it simmers, but I also have a low setting and a warm setting as well. So I could leave it on low, which does still get quite warm, and I'd check the temperature that stuff gets to make sure it gets to the setting point. And then it probably wouldn't stir the water as much. Or I could put it on high, and then it would actually bubble the water, and that might actually get a bit of stuff going. But actually, whilst I'm thinking about it, on the variegation front, because I'd read sort of like kettle dyed is supposed to, oh dear, I'm sending the camera wobbling, sorry, I'll stop doing that. When I kettle dyed my, okay, too many thoughts, stop. When I kettle dyed my yarn previously, and there's the first part of my dyer's diary up online showing sort of the first half of what I did, I got in my head the idea that kettle dyeing, sort of dyeing in a big pan of water, was meant to create variegated yarn. And it wasn't very, and I didn't really mind, because I was like, that's okay, I didn't want masses of variegation. But I was a little bit like, this is semi-solid perhaps, but it's not sort of, there's not a massive amount of difference in it. And then somebody posted a while back, and I can't even remember where it was or who it was, so I apologise. It might have been Kimber or Kath. There's a K in my head, something like that, so I think maybe it was Kimber. Apologies. For not being able to give appropriate kudos, but this genius person said if you don't soak it in, if you don't soak the yarn beforehand and you put the acid into the dye bath, which actually a lot of other places seem to, now that I've watched the YouTube videos and what have you, the YouTube videos, it's like you just soak the yarn in water, and then the dye bath has the acid and the dye and everything in it together, which actually kind of makes more sense to me, really. Then if you don't soak it beforehand, then the rate at which the dye goes in will differ, and so you'll get that more variegated feel. And I was like, that totally makes sense. And particularly if you have the water at the high temperature straight away, because it's setting straight away, so as soon as the dye goes into the yarn, it sets. So it won't get throughout the whole yarn nice and evenly before it sets. So it kind of, I was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how this is going to work. You know, you've got it in the water and it's soaking in, but it's setting as it goes, so you get this different amounts in. And then I started thinking about gradients and what have you, and how do you do those, and all of it. And anyway, I haven't played with dyeing very much since, but I have bought myself, because it was £10, I was like, I can't not buy it really. And it's a little bit deep and round, so if I show you the pot, it's kind of, you know, as deep as it is round kind of thing. And some of the pictures I've seen online tend to be shallower and wider, so you can kind of put a skein just sort of folded in half, if you know. In fact, if I just lean down, excuse me for a moment. Here we go. Here's one I prepared earlier. So if you fold a skein in half like that, it would fit in the bottom of a sort of full width, full size in terms of the oval shape slow cooker that is what I've normally seen. And you can just lay that in the bottom and then it's one layer thick. Well, in this, he says try not to rock the camera too much, to put a skein of yarn in, it kind of will fill it. So I'm kind of thinking, oh, how will that work, how will that work? Now, the stuff I saw about doing stuff in a slow cooker, oh my god, so many words. It was usually that you hand painted it. So rather than setting up a dye bath in here and then popping the yarn in which case it would be very tight and a bit like the yarns I first dyed in the jam pan. It was way too tightly packed and the dyes split and it became variegated because the blue went all the way through to the centre but the brown didn't. So I had dark brown and then blue as opposed to an even dark brown throughout. With this I would hopefully have already introduced the dye into the yarn, or I would be hand painting the yarn once I put it in the bowl. Now the latter one, and now that I've got it out and had a look at it, I think might not work so well in this size bowl. So it might be more a case of kind of playing with and experimenting with pouring colour onto the yarn and then scrunching it up. And kind of what happens then, you know. Now if it just ends up being muddy mess and what have you, maybe it's not great and maybe this doesn't work for it and maybe it's £10 down the drain. Or I repurpose it as a secondary slow cooker for the kitchen for, I don't know, rice pudding or something like that. So we'll see what happens. I might, because at the moment I'm only using food dyes, it would be fine for me to do it in the kitchen slow cooker anyway because it's all non-toxic. I'm going to use citric acid rather than the vinegar, but that's, you know, food as well, basically. Citric acid stuff you get in food all the time. It's just an acidity regulator in processed foods, and some jams and what have you, which I guess technically are processed food, but not in the same sort of way as I think of it. Anyway, so the much sort of, it's more oval shaped and it would fit just a skein of yarn folded in half, so it's much more, you could kind of do stripes on it and stuff in colour, which is the kind of thing I've usually seen when I've seen people demonstrating slow cooking yarn. I could wrap it in cling film and then slow cook it, but I kind of think if I was going to wrap it in cling film I could just microwave it or steam it as well as an option, which is interesting. But I think if you wrap something in cling film you're not getting the benefit of it kind of being in water and allowing the colours to merge a bit more, so I'd kind of be tempted to just microwave the thing. Like, actually it works really well, it's quicker and it's no fuss no mess because nothing gets dirty because everything's wrapped in cling film. So I kind of hope I can do some kind of dye bath in the slow cooker that, like, the stuff I've seen that I really like the idea of is you would drop some colour at one end, some colour at the other, some colour at the other, and then you put it on a low heat and the colours kind of dissolve across and slowly cook in. But I'm not sure, or maybe you leave the colours to blur for a bit and then bring the heat up, and I don't know, I haven't played with it, I haven't experimented, I'm still working it out. But there we go. So that's all my little dyeing plans, yarn dyeing plans, I feel I should say, just so that it's not ambiguous, in my little slow cooker for £10 from Morrison's. Very excited. The big one, if you're interested, was £15, and that's 5.5 litres. So, totally a bargain. Community is next, and I haven't been doing much knitting, as I said, and I haven't watched many podcasts. However, there are two to give a shout out to. One is the chaps over at FO and I. Dave and Ellie have given me a challenge. Well, Dave gave me a challenge, really, as I said, to knit the Even Star during their shawl along. So if you're knitting a shawl and you want to get involved with them, go and check out their podcast group on Ravelry, FO and dye, as in dyeing yarn. And it's written with an ampersand instead of an and word written out. And yeah, so it was, yes, thank you guys, we'll see what happens. I've already talked about the Even Star and what I think is going to happen, so I don't need to go back on over that. The other person to give a shout out to is Ken from the Turbo Knitter podcast. It was amazing when he said that he watches me because I watch him, so it was kind of cool to kind of get, oh yay, we're kind of mutual podcast buddies. And he really is inspiring in terms of getting me to think about knitting for charity and what have you. And there is still the charity knit along thread going in my Ravelry group, so DancingGeek, one word, podcast in the Ravelry groups section. There's a thread in there, sticky one at the top, for some charity knitting that's being done for local charity here, so you could send hats and bits and pieces down to I'm trying to remember what her handle is. I can't remember. Wellwoman 123, I think she is on Ravelry, or Wellwoman on Ravelry and 123 on Instagram. Anyway, Wellwoman, who is doing a collection and what have you, in a drive for that. So I'm not sure how long it's going on for, but I'm pretty sure I've got some time to get the projects I need to get done out of the way, and then I can try and get some charity knitting done as well, and then I can try and get on with my socks. And constantly this queue is just growing of things I want to make, which is cool because it means I'm never bored, but it also is a bit like, oh my god, because then something new comes and it's like, oh, I want to make this, but it's like, oh, I've already committed myself in my head to all these other things, and maybe sometimes I do some juggling and kind of move things around, but often it's just like, no, I've got to be good, I've got to just put the new shiny thing at the end of the queue and wait until I get to it. Which is why, even though I've ripped out the sock weight jumper and I had already started it, that's kind of gone back to the bottom of the queue again because I've got other stuff that needs to get done. So yeah, that was just two shout outs to those guys, because I happened to manage to get to watch a couple of podcasts, and those guys were, well, they both mentioned me actually, it was awesome. So that was really nice. More so I just wanted to say hi guys. And it's lovely to know that you watch me. So, the only other stuff I have for community is Topher's question number 3. And this week, the question is, what turns me on? Now, Nathan, Sockmatician, on his podcast, he got the same questions from Topher, and he did the same thing as well. When he first went to answer them, he hadn't actually realised what they were, and I think I said in a previous episode, but if I haven't, I did Google it, and basically they were questions that tended to be given at the end of a chat show or something to the guests, kind of thing, just as a quick kind of rattle off, and it sort of became a traditional set of questions, I think, through that program. It's American as far as I remember. I didn't look into it very much. I just was like, oh, okay, it's from a TV thing, so fair enough. That's where they come from. It's not like it's some kind of academic exercise where once I've answered all 10 questions you'll be able to tell what my PIN number is or something like that. But he answered all 10 in one go, and so when he got to this one he kind of just looked at the camera and then moved on to question 4. No, I don't know if the first thing you would think of as an American for this question is different, but as a Brit, the first thing you think of for this is it's very private in nature and it's very intimate in nature. So it's very interesting getting this question. Basically, if something turns you on for a Brit, it usually would mean you are talking about something sexual. I'm going to take the more general approach to this question, and to its twin for next episode, and talk in the more general terms of what gets me excited in life, what is my passion, what gets me enthusiastic, and so on. So what turns me on in life. And without preamble, I don't have to come up with an answer. So I suppose talking about things I enjoy, like this, like doing the podcast, definitely, really, I've just got a big grin on my face and I feel great when I've done it, because I really feel like I've just being able to be me and talk about stuff that I'm interested in and feel confident that there's going to be people out there who respond well to it and are happy that I've done it and look forward to me doing it, and that's such a special feeling, particularly for me, because it's something that I'm not only not used to, but I'm used to the exact opposite of, that being me was something that people didn't want me to do. So I get excited when I get to be me. That means geeking out. So if I'm on my own, it's things like learning. So learning languages. I've currently got 3 on the go at different sort of amounts. Swedish, German and Japanese. Swedish is the one I'm really actually making a concerted effort to. I do some Swedish every day. Sometimes I'm learning new stuff, sometimes I'm just reviewing what I've already learned, and I do that all through the website Duolingo, Duolingo, and it's a free website. There's a whole bunch of languages you can learn. It's really cool for getting introduced to a language. There's a little bit of sort of grammar rules given to you. There's lots of basic vocab that is repeated over and over and over and over and over again. So you start forming sentences pretty quickly, and if anything doesn't make sense, every single little exercise, every single little sentence or phrase that you work on has a discussion forum attached to it. You can only get to it, as far as I can tell, through that particular question. Sometimes people link to them, and I haven't worked out how they do that. So I need to have a bit more of a play to try and work that out. But basically, if something confuses you about why your answer is incorrect, or why a different answer, if a different answer would also be correct, or why a particular verb has been used this way, or why this noun which meant something else earlier now means this, and all these kind of questions that you have when you're looking at stuff and you just go, oh, what? You go in the forum, and there's people who are like, I mean, it's all volunteers as far as I can tell, who've created the lessons, all the notes and all the phrases and their translations and what have you, and all they kind of go through and verify what would be an accepted translation in both languages. So if you've got, like in English, I want to go home, in French there's a few different ways you could translate that would mean the same thing. And equally, if you had a phrase in French that meant I want to go home, if you think in English, well, it could be I want to go home, or I want to go back to my house, or I can't think of something off the top of my head. Okay, I'm not very good at coming up with examples. Alright, stop picking on me! But sometimes there's a few different translations, and it's often particular with sort of more idiomatic phrasing. And And I can't think of examples off the top of my head, but they exist. So they go through and they go, yes, this is a valid translation. So whilst I've done various lessons and stuff, sometimes when I've put in an answer and it's not been accepted, particularly if it's an English translation, or a French one sometimes, because I'm very confident in some of my French, I would, and if it says, this answer is wrong, I'd be like, no, that is actually right, it's just one that the computer hasn't got in its data banks yet. So then you can go and feedback. I haven't even finished telling you about the other feature. Oh my god, I'm just waffling now. When you're learning, there's a forum and you go in there and there are native speakers in there as well as fellow learners, and you can talk about all the questions, and somebody's probably already asked your question, and if not, you can then ask it, or you can join in the discussion on someone else's, or you might suddenly find yourself going, actually I understand the bit that you're struggling with, and you can give them a little bit of support. And you can sort of swap little tokens to say thank you and stuff, and you get little points and whatever, and you don't really do much with them, but you can spend points to do little extra features and stuff, so it kind of encourages you to keep going. And then there's also sort of admin-y type people, as in terms of administrators, not secretaries. But admin in terms of overseeing the internet, administrator. And they will also jump into conversations and stuff, which is really cool, because they're just people that are geeks about language as well, who happen to be fluent in both languages. One will be obviously their maternal language, and the other might just be one they're fluent in because they've learned it as a second language and they're very fluent in it, or it might be that they're actually bilingual. But either way, you get learners from both sides of the language of different competencies talking to each other. So there's usually a few people around who are they love explaining and they love teaching, and so they go on there and they just tell you what's going on, and it's amazing. And then there's also the people that kind of put it together. You can give feedback about phrases or a saying. So if I think I'm right and my answer should be accepted, I can put feedback in that says, no, my answer's right, or the answer that you think is right doesn't really sound right in English. So there's one in particular where, from Swedish to English, and the English translation is, on Saturday it's weekend. And I'm like, no. We would say on Saturday it's the weekend. Now, just to have a moment of linguistic geekery, when you say the something, it's called the definite article versus an indefinite article. So if I say the bottle, it means I'm referring specifically to this bottle. So I'm holding the bottle that I got for my birthday. And I'm talking about one specific bottle, whereas if I said I'm holding a bottle, or there is a bottle, or can you pass me a bottle, it means I don't mind which one. I'm not talking about a specific one. Can you pass me the bottle on the left, the specific one on the left? So it's definite versus indefinite. Now, in English, we use the definite article when we say it's the weekend. And actually, you never think about this stuff when you speak a language natively, because it's just how you say stuff. But actually, when I thought about it, it's a little bit odd, because they don't do that in Swedish. In the Swedish, I'm not going to attempt to say it, but it's on Saturday, it's weekend. Just sort of checking it in my head, and it makes more sense because it's almost like saying it's a weekend. On Saturday it's going to be a weekend, it's going to be one weekend of many, whereas we say it's the weekend, like this is the only one that matters. All other weekends don't matter, this is the one that matters, the one that's going to be happening on Saturday. And I just found that really interesting. But I've fed back and gone, no, this is wrong. We would definitely, in English, we would only say on Saturday it's the weekend. Or it's going to be the weekend, or it'll be the weekend on Saturday. And it's a bit of an odd phrase to say anyway, because like, well, yeah, of course on Saturday it's going to be the weekend, duh. And obviously it's because these are basic phrases, that are, and some of them are procedurally generated, which means the computer takes various parts of sentences and puts them together. So they still generally make sense, but they're just a bit odd. It might be like the pirate is chopping carrots. It's like, what? Or there's some which are just kind of funny, like the cooks cook food, and of course the point is that it's two different uses of the word cook, and so it's all I love it. Language geek, and so I'll sit and I'll learn about these things. But it's a brilliant site, is what I was trying to say basically, and just give you a bit of a blurb about Duolingo. So if you guys are at all interested in languages or would like to brush up on something you learned as a kid, there are loads and loads of languages on there. They're mostly Western European / American languages. So they have Spanish on there, Italian, German, French. There are others, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. I think Russian is on there. But it's not got things like Chinese or Japanese. Actually, no, wait, does it have Chinese? Ah, maybe, but it doesn't have Japanese. Anyway, go and check it out if you're at all interested. So I'm learning Swedish and German through that, and I practice my French occasionally on that website. And then Japanese I'm learning separately. I downloaded a little app on my phone because I got some free credit from Amazon for some random reason. I was like, alright then, I'll find an app. And it's like, ooh, a little learning Japanese paid for app. I was like, I'll have that for free. So I've been using that to re-teach myself how to write the alphabet and stuff. So that kind of thing I love, and you can tell because I can just talk about it for ages. So when I get going on a subject, you know that that's a subject that turns me on, as it were. And at the moment, D&D also is in that category. I tried it as a kid and really didn't get on with it, but it was mostly because I was joining in mid-campaign and the DM really, you know, we were all just kids. And he didn't know how to try and make me feel welcome and include me in the group and what have you. He just wanted to get on with what they were doing previously. You know, I was friends with one of the chaps and they tried to, you know, they wanted to bring me along to get involved, which was awfully nice of them. I say friends, acquaintances was closer to the truth. But anyway, I tried to kind of make friends and stuff as a kid, but it really didn't work. But I'm really enjoying it now that I've got decent friends and we're a bit more grown up. And I have been poring over the handbook that I bought and building up my characters, and it's just so much fun. So much fun. And then yarn is definitely something that gets me going. I can't stop buying sock yarn apparently, even when I'm on a no more yarn sort of yarn buying hiatus. I've still managed to acquire masses of sock yarn every episode so far. Oh dear. Hey ho! And what else do I geek out on? I think that's a good broad collection at the moment. To be honest, whatever I get stuck into at any one moment tends to be what I geek out on. So learning stuff and wrapping my head around it and really feeling like I understand how something works, that really excites me. It gets my brain going. And that's what I love. That's what I absolutely love. So sussing out a new knitting pattern or a new technique in a knitting pattern, something online, so learning how to upload to iTunes, for example. Hi Mel! Mel Trans Designs podcast. I spent 4 hours with her on a Google Hangout, getting her podcast onto iTunes. It was kind of hilarious and kind of painful, and I was pretty knackered at the end of it, I have to admit. Because it was like, I want to get this done, and then afterwards, when I turned the computer off, I just sat on the sofa for like an hour and did nothing. I was like, oh my god, I'm so tired. But I had a brilliant time chatting with Mel for 4 hours. It was between lunch and dinner for me, and it was first thing for her, between breakfast and lunch for her. And I just had a great fun kind of going, this is how it all fits together. In terms of you upload your podcast to YouTube, so you've got your YouTube viewers and everything, but to put it on iTunes, you have to you put your podcast on the Internet Archive, and then you copy the link from there, that's direct download link for the file, and you put that at the bottom of a blog post, and then you can put your show notes and stuff and a link and embed the YouTube video in there if you want to. And then you take that podcast and create a FeedBurner feed, which then formats your RSS feed correctly for iTunes, and you put your image that you need to have in there, and you fill in all the requirements for iTunes. And your image, I put on the Internet Archive as well, because that's something that accepts download requests from iTunes. And then you take that FeedBurner feed and you send it off to the iTunes store, and iTunes goes, okay, and it works, and it's great, but it takes a bit of fiddling to talk somebody through it so that they know what they're going to be doing for their next episode and what have you. So it was, and I had to remind myself, how did I do this all? Because obviously I sat and I worked it all out when I did it for myself, and then I'd forgotten it, and it was, months ago. Months and months ago. So I was like, how did I do it? So I had mine up, comparing it and everything, and that kind of thing, helping people solve tech problems and stuff. It's quite hard work, but I used to do it as a job, and I did really, really enjoy it. So yeah, there we go. I think that's enough random geekeriness. That's what gets me going. That's what gets me excited. I will pop the maths bit at the end for those of you who either can't be bothered to turn it off or actually genuinely are interested in the maths section. And I know that since knitters are also geeks, generally speaking, it's not unusual for knitters to be quite geeky about maths. And certainly those of us who have the kind of brains where something like, what's it called? Technical editing, there we go, I was thinking pattern editing, but that's not quite right, technical editing, which is something that's on my radar at the moment, and I'm thinking more and more about. I had some people on Instagram offer to chat with me. So far only one of them has got back to me, but I haven't chased them, so I need to do that. So the person that got back to me was Jolie from Jolie's Kitchen podcast. Lovely lady who is sort of an evangelist almost for technical editing and for becoming a technical editor. So she's been amazing, answering a bunch of questions and what have you. So I highly recommend checking her out just as another knitting podcast. And if you're at all interested in sort of more geeky stuff and maths, then you can go and look at her website as well, which has a load of info about technical editing and stuff, which I was looking at before. So thank you, Jolie, and I'll chase the other guys as well and try and have a conversation with them about it, because it's something that I am thinking of approaching in the future. Not straight away, because I've got other stuff that I'm focused on for me at the moment, but once I get that done and I'm in a really good, stable place, I can start thinking about going back into the world of work. And technical editing would be one of the ways I would really like to do that, because I think it would match my skill set really well. It's time for some maths. And we're going to start with a number line. This is just a big long line, which I have decided is a length of 1. It starts at 0 and it ends at 1. Now, last episode, I showed you that we can say that 1 is equal to 0.999999999, and so on and so on and so on and so on, so long as you do it an infinite number of times. Yeah? And the thing I want to get you guys thinking about today is how this works. How this can be written as a list of numbers that get closer and closer and closer to 1, and that when you then go and take it to make that list infinite, the last number actually becomes 1. So that didn't make any sense, don't worry, I'm going to write it all out. So the first number I'm going to write down is 0.9. Yeah, that's my first number. And if I put it on the line, it's roughly there. I'm not being exact, it's kind of roughly somewhere over here. It's pretty close to 1, but there's still a fairly big gap between it. So the next number I'm going to write down is 0.99. Okay, let's draw that on the line. Well, that's probably somewhere about here. Okay, it's a lot closer, but there's still a fair amount of a gap there. So I write down my next number in my list, 0.999. Let's draw that on. Well, it's going to get a little bit tricky to do that, but it falls about here. Okay, so I've had to draw it at the top. You can see it's even closer to 1, but there's still a gap. Okay, and if I keep going with this list, yeah, you can see that this number is going to get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to 1. But there's always a bit of a gap. It never quite makes it to 1, does it? However, if I then do it an infinite number of times, I've shown that it actually becomes 1. Okay? So I can think of this list of numbers that gets closer and closer and closer and closer to 1, actually reaches 1 when I do it, when I write that list out with an infinite number of items in the list. So I carry on that pattern to infinity. And the idea here is each of these, we can see it gets closer and closer and closer to 1, but it never quite reaches. They never quite get there. There's always a little bit of a gap. But if I take it to infinity, then it gets there. And this is a really, really important idea when you're thinking about infinity. If you take a list of numbers that are following a pattern, so here I'm adding, you could kind of, I don't want to get too technical, but I'm adding a tenth each time, kind of is what I'm doing technically. But if you write it out like this, you can see that all I'm doing is I'm writing an extra 9 on the end. And there's a way to sort of say that mathematically, but that's not what's important. What's important is that I'm following the same pattern, and that same pattern is getting me closer and closer and closer to 1. But I don't reach 1 unless I repeat that pattern an infinite number of times, 9999, write the 9 on the end an infinite number of times, and then I reach the number 1. And there's two things that are really important there. One, that I've done it an infinite number of times, and two, that it actually gets there. The fact that it gets there is super important. Okay, and so I call that the limit of this list of numbers is 1, because the limit of it as I approach an infinite number of 9s is going to be this number, which is 1. Yeah, so if I do this an infinite number of times, I will reach my limit. I've reached my limit! Which is not quite, no, which is 1. So I get closer and closer and closer and closer, but I don't quite get there. If I do it an infinite number of times, I get there. Okay. Now the reason I am stressing the fact that we got there is because when we start to think about things like space-filling curves, which is what Nathan Socraticians Nathan, who is Sock Competition from the Sock Competition podcast, much as I am Dancing Geek from the Dancing Geek podcast, we didn't come up with fancy names for our podcasts. We just named them after ourselves. He was talking about his new patterns, and the scarf has been released on Ravelry. It's beautiful. Go and check it out. It is the piano, number 1, I think it's called. So that's piano. Oh, I can't write to save my life. Piano number 1. Yeah, and I think that's so. It's piano. Yeah, a bit like you're very posh and you're playing the piano. So that's his pattern. It's got this beautiful repeated motif on it, which looks a bit like a letter N for Nathan. And the idea behind this shape is that you can use this shape by shrinking it down and then repeating it, and shrinking that and repeating it, and shrinking it and repeating it, and shrinking it and repeating it. You can entirely fill up a square. Hence, it becomes space filling. So it would be entirely filled in, and all those little white gaps, they wouldn't exist. It'd be like, no, all of them get filled in, every last one, down to the tiniest of tiny little dots, until there's no spaces left. And I have, in fact, filled it in. Yeah, there is no space left in there, completely filled it. And it's kind of crazy to think that this thing with all this air in it, all this space in between these lines, can suddenly become sort of solid. And how does that work? And the idea is just to think of it as the distance between the lines. If I shrink that, the distance between the lines gets smaller. Yeah? That kind of makes sense. So if I draw a smaller version of it, yeah, you can see that this distance is smaller than this distance. And if I shrink it again, and shrink it again, and shrink it again, and shrink it again, the distance gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Now if I keep drawing it, yeah, no matter how many times I make it smaller, it will always approach becoming just like a little dot, but it'll never quite get there unless I do it an infinite number of times. So the idea here is, with this particular space filling curve, what you do is you shrink it to 1/3 of its original size each time. So if this distance, let's say this is a distance of 1 centimetre, 1 inch, whatever you like to record. Let's say this distance is 1. Then after I've shrunk it by 1/3, the distance is going to be 1/3. And if I shrink it by 1/3 again, the distance becomes 1/9. If I shrink it by 1/3 again, it becomes 1/27. So we have this series of numbers. First it's 1, then it's 1/3, then it's 1/9, then it's 1/27, and so on and so on and so forth. Yeah? And it keeps going. Now the trick here is 1, well that's not that's big enough for me to be able to have some space between these lines. 1/3, well it's smaller, but it's still some space between these lines. 1/9, well it's smaller still, but there's still a gap between those lines. 27th, oh it's smaller still, but there's still a gap. And no matter how many times I do this, there's still that tiny gap. Except if I do it an infinite number of times, and then I get there, I get to the end of that limit. So this number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and we would say that the limit of this list of numbers is 0. Okay? Because if I go and shrink it by 1/3 and shrink it by 1/3 and shrink it by 1/3, and I just do that a lot, it ends up with a very, very small number, but it's still a number bigger than 0. It could be tiny, 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 tiny. 1 over bajillion, 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 bajillion. It's still not 0, which means there's still a space between those two lines. But if I take it to infinity, if I shrink it by a third and repeat that process an infinite number of times, on the last one, that doesn't make sense because it's infinite. But if you repeat that process an infinite number of times, then it will reach its limit, which is 0. So you have to do it to infinity and beyond. No, just to infinity. You have to do it an infinite number of times to reach the limit, which is 0. But the point is, you do reach it when you do it an infinite number of times. And that's why I wanted to look at this way, because we worked out that, yeah, this makes sense. I took you through how to show that this number equals 1. And the point is, if we think of that as the limit of this little list of numbers, that gets closer and closer and closer to 1, but we think, well, it'd never quite get there. But it does if you do it an infinite number of times. It's the same thinking that allows us to see that if I shrink it and 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 shrink it, the distance between the lines, if I do it an infinite number of times, becomes the number it's getting closer and closer to, which is 0. So the distance between them becomes 0. And if the distance between the lines is 0, they must be touching. Yeah? So there's no gaps between any of those lines. They all touch. It fills the whole space. And I think that's kind of amazing. So that is talking about limits. And I did have one person respond to the last episode by going, they were screaming at the, shouting at the screen going, it's the limit as it tends to infinity! Which, if you're a maths nerd, that's, you know, that makes sense. You understand what that means. But the language in that is just this. It's the limit. Yeah? So it's what happens when you go to infinity. As it tends to infinity, well, all that means is as you're tending, or as you're approaching to its mathematical term, you would say the limit as it tends to infinity. And that just means the item in the list that you get as you approach, when you approach to infinity, what are you getting towards? What are you getting closer and closer to as you approach, or as you tend to the infinite number in that list? So it's just mathematical speak. Maths has lots of things like that, where it has its own little language, because sometimes it's difficult to say things nice and quickly and succinctly, as you can see. So we use language to just say that the limit as this little series or list of numbers, as you approach the infinite number in that list, is 1. That is its limit, is 1. And in the same sense here, the limit of this list of numbers, or series, as a mathematician would say a series, which is a list of numbers. There's different kinds of series, but we'll not go there. We'll just say, you know, a little number series here. The limit of that series is 0, and you reach 0 if you go for an infinite length. If you keep going and repeating your way through that process, if you keep going through that list an infinite number of times, you get to the limit. Okay, I've repeated myself now, so I think that's probably a good point at which to sign off. I would love, if you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to give me a shout out. But Nathan, specifically for you, I hope that helps to explain how that little shape, that little N for Nathan shape, ends up filling the whole space with no gaps in between. As always, guys, it's been great to sit here and chat to you via my podcast, and I wish you all the best and lots of love. Bye!